So, as a young kid, I was about 12 years old, playing sports like all other kids, football, basketball, baseball. And I woke up one morning and I had a purple eye, had a little sty over my right eye. So, didn't think anything about it. As months went by, though, it never got any smaller, and it actually got a little bit larger. So, my parents took me to the doctors, and nobody could tell me what it was. I ended up getting surgery at Bascom Palmer Eye Institute, and they couldn't even figure out what it was, so they sent the slides out to Washington so they could try and diagnose what I had. Ended up going up to New York for a trip to visit Sloan Kettering Memorial Hospital and sat down with the doctors there, and they reviewed the case with me, and they described that, I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and that I was going to go through chemotherapy, I was going to go through radiation therapy, I was going to have to take a lot of steroids and a lot of pills to help get me better. My escape was basically comic books. I started collecting comic books just a couple years before that, and I was a big Amazing Spider-Man fan, and was definitely collecting Amazing Spider-Man at that time. So that was the beginning of me trying to get away. I would open up my comic books. I brought some comic books with me up to New York, and I would read them all the time, and I knew them by heart pretty much because I only brought a few books. In the story where he got bit by the spider and he went through these changes, and he had a really difficult time going through the changes and trying to adapt. And that's kind of, where I drew some of my power from. He could get through it. Maybe I can get through this too. It was a pretty tough experience, and the only thing that would, help me out was sometimes just kind of disappearing into his comic books. I saw Spider-Man definitely as a way to cope, definitely as a way to get away, and to help me forget about some of the things and the pain and the things I was going through. Make-A-Wish Foundation came through the Ronald McDonald House, and they asked kids what they would like to make a wish, and they wanted to grant wishes. Well, as a young teenager, getting ready to turn into a teenager, I liked loud music. So I asked for a big, huge boombox, big, huge stereo. And my second thing was to ask for an Amazing Spider-Man, Amazing Fantasy 15. And they called me up to the stage, and they said, "Brian Shanker, we have a gift for you, and on behalf of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, we have this stereo for you." And I was so excited. I mean, the thing was huge. It had two big speakers, had a record player, if anybody remembers record players. And I had to get it shipped down, and it cost like $300 to get it shipped down. I was very happy. I didn't hear anything else from them, so I started to walk off the stage, and they said, "Wait, Brian, where are you going?" And I said, "Well, I was going back to my seat." And they said, No, we have one more package for you." I was like, "Okay." So in the back of my head, could this really be? Could this really be? So they presented me a box, and I opened the box, and it was Amazing Fantasy 15.
I got a phone call at work from Brian, and he was telling me that all of a sudden he had this opportunity for 10 of his books to be signed by Stan Lee, and he was going home to get his books so that they could be signed. So I had a very short period of time to put together a letter and to hope that it might end up with the books at the signing. So when I wrote the letter, all I had in mind was that I wanted Stan Lee to know. I wanted him to know what his story did for someone, and I think that sometimes when you're famous and you get caught up in day-to-day activities, you don't get to see what your works do for other people. And I think that my ambition was just to let him know that Spider-Man touched Brian's life in a big way. We
had set up a private Stan Lee signing for MegaCon, where we were going to be bringing our books as well as customer books to get signed by Stan Lee. A mutual friend of me and Brian put us together, knowing that Brian was such a Spider-Man fan and had a first appearance of Spider-Man that he wanted signed. And this book has a lot of meaning. This man has had this book since he's 12 years old. He's now in his 40s. He's defeated cancer, and Spider-Man had a lot to do with it. This book was definitely set aside. It was the first book to get signed. We had the letter with us, which we had my wife read to him while he was signing the rest of the books. But we definitely made sure to take extra special care of this book. As a matter of fact, we paid a little extra to get it express graded, so we got it back in 5 days instead of a month. And I went myself and picked it up. Yeah, to me, this experience, it was very special to me. It was more than just bringing books to Stan to get signed. Doing this, us at Heroes Haven, doing this for someone meant a lot to him, but it also meant a lot to us that we can share this experience with him. We can make this happen for him. To have Stan Lee sign it and know his story just makes the book that much more special.